Software engineering isn't entry level anymore. It's all about the mid-level to senior level engineers that can use AI today to build and iterate effectively with different projects, different features, fix bugs, and give AI the context that it needs to get things done without having an engineer be there to do it. There are so many different AI tools out here now that could do so many different things that you kind of have to keep up with what's the best AI tool for this particular use case? What's the best AI tool that runs in the background to help me make money or get things done that I don't want to do anymore? There's so many ways to do things now. It's not even that you have to pay for a course to get it. You don't have to go to school for it. You literally could just use the AI, create an account for any AI tool that you want, and from there, pay the subscription. I've been in the field for over a decade, and I could tell you I've learned and grew with all these different frameworks that came out, all these different ways of building things. And I could tell you right now, me using AI, I use mostly Claude Code at the moment, but using Claude Code to help me build projects, build features, and also solve bugs and give it context around that is a game changer. I could pick and choose what kind of code is actually introduced in my project and just tell it refactor this, or if things are broken, just show it a screenshot and it would actually look at that screenshot for context and build around that. So there's no excuse for any of you engineers right now that are entry level to not be able to get into the job market. The fundamentals of software engineering is going to take you further as opposed to chasing all these different frameworks, trying to just use AI to vibe code and do all these different things. If you're just vibe coding, you're not really learning, you're not gonna grow, and you're just gonna rely on AI to do everything. And I've seen that before where AI was down, and say, for example, if you had a production issue and you had to solve that problem, now you gotta figure out what's going on in the code. And if you don't know the context of the code that AI is writing, you're gonna run into a lot of problems. It's gonna take you so long to figure out what needs to be done. Based on what I've learned in the past, it was all about understanding frameworks that everybody else was using to where it helped with productivity and actually made it easier to code. Now you have to just give context to AI, make sure that it understands the coding standard that you have for a particular project, and prompt it in a way that it understands exactly what needs to be done and how it could get better in solving that problem, and then also teaching you about what needs to be done as well. And the bar has moved so high from entry level. When I first started, I could find a job easily. It didn't take me that long to find it. It was probably like a month or two of just doing interviews and finding the right company to work for. And then finally I would be like, you know what? This is the company I want to work for. I'm actually behind the project or the solution that we're trying to help customers with. This makes sense to me. I had options. Now you don't really have that option. You could apply to as many jobs as you want, but in actuality, you need to make sure you have the fundamentals down to where you could explain and solve problems. It's not about coding anymore. It's more about thinking and logically solving a problem. This is a big thing that a lot of entry-level developers just don't have, and it's a skill that you need to master. So using AI to help you with that is going to level you up in weeks as opposed to months. Companies are expecting you now to think, not to just code and figure things out. AI could do all that stuff for you now. So if you have bigger picture thinking, you're already ahead of the curve. Recently, I saw a video on Riplet, which is an AI tool that helps you build web applications or a website. You just give it context on what you want it to build and have it, you could tell it, hey, build me a website that looks like X, right, for Twitter. It'll get you close to what that layout is, and then you could tweak it to whatever you want. Also, if you want to build out a web portfolio, you could do that. If you want to build your own website, you could easily do that now. You don't have to build everything from scratch and take weeks to get it done. Juniors are expected to know architecture of a system, how to build a system so that it scales, it's modular, it's easy to work through. The one thing that you don't want is a system that is riddled with bugs, and also it's complicated to fix. And sometimes you can see that with AI's output, it will just build out this huge boilerplate of code. And if you are not smart enough to understand the logic in that sense, and you push that out into your production code and something happens, you are spending more time with AI trying to figure out the issue and going through all these hallucinations of what the problem might be, as opposed to you already architecting or figuring out the architecture already and understanding where the pain points are. So that's very important. Also, databases. You got to understand how databases work, what data that you're storing in a database, pipelines, also production failures. How do you go about solving a problem with a production failure? If it's something that to where users can't log into the application, are you going to learn that on your own, or are you going to use AI to help you pinpoint what's going on? This is where the difference is between a good engineer and a bad engineer, right? A good engineer would use AI to help with architecting a system or building a system to where it's easy enough for the code to flow. Bad engineer would just go about vibe coding everything, and then when an issue arises, is relying on AI to fix everything. That's not the way to go. The truth is that software engineering now is all about an engineering discipline. And what I mean by that is you need to know the fundamentals of engineering. What is important? Number one is your communication. That is the most important thing that you need to learn. That's the most important skill that you need to have as a developer. If you are not able to communicate with your team members, or communicate in terms of what project that you're working on, and also what the requirements are and whether it makes sense to go a different route, or you're just going to build it as is, you're going to run into a lot of problems. You're going to run into just working on a project for the long run, and your time is going to be wasted. So communication is number one. Being able to communicate about what you're building, what you're working on, asking the right questions to open up discussions around what needs to be done, because there could be missed requirements in that discussion. You understanding what you're building and understanding what needs to be done by other teams and all this stuff, you now have more questions to bring back to the product owners and the stakeholders too. And that just saves you a lot of time. Being able to learn with the times is number two. What I mean by that is learning with AI, understanding different AI tools to solve different problems. ChatGPT might not even help you solve with coding problems. It's probably good with the way it structures out code and figures out what's going on with your project, but the best ones are the ones that are tested by other people. And you have to look at the long list of AI tools that are out there that are in the top 5 and work with that, like Claude Code, GitHub Copilot, Cursor. Do your research on that and learn with AI. Do not get into that habit. And I used to do this too, where I didn't want to use AI because I thought it was cheating, but honestly, it's not cheating. It's actually helping me get things done a lot faster and understanding where the problem lies. The third thing is understanding the context of a problem. The more you're able to understand a problem, the easier it's going to be. No matter how complex it is, if you were able to break that down into smaller pieces, it will be easier for you to adapt to solving that problem. So understanding what you're working on is key as an engineer. If you can't do that, if you are just mundanely working on easy bugs and not learning, you will stay the same. So if you're a beginner right now, I want you guys to stop chasing frameworks. You should learn how to build end-to-end systems, understand how a system works from front end to back end. Once you have a project in mind that you want to work on your own, you could build out the front end, you could get everything set up in that way, and then try to tackle the back end and work with AI to navigate exactly what pieces of the puzzle you need to put together and whether it makes sense. So once you contextually have everything that you want to build and you work with AI to help you with that, it makes it easier for you to understand how systems work. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect, right? The biggest thing is understanding the fundamentals of a system and where things could break. So learn how to build an end-to-end system and learn how things break, because things are going to break. There might be things that are very fragile. You change one part of the code and it breaks. And now you have to double back and try to figure out where the problem is. It might be new code that you introduced to solve a problem, and you did your testing and it went through all the paces of testing, but there's an edge case that you missed, and it is what it is. But this is only going to enhance your learning. And this is what software engineers do all the time. We build things that we think are efficient. It works for the time being. But as things start to scale and get better, that's when you have to adapt and make things better along the times. And sometimes the code might be spaghetti code and you got to just live with it. And it depends on how major the impact is, because sometimes you could refactor things and it could break a lot more stuff. So as long as the code is isolated enough, you should be able to refactor it. But if it's touching multiple areas, then you got to do an impact assessment. You got to assess whether it's worth making the effort of refactoring code to then not run into these problems, all right? This is the reason why entry level is not it anymore. Now it's mid to senior level engineers that are using AI to help with productivity and making things a lot easier. Because if you have something that is agentic and it's understanding the context of your system and it has all these different features built into it to make sure that this project is successful, and all you have to do is just give it a good prompt and give it great context, who wouldn't want to do that? It just makes life a lot easier. That's it, guys. That's the video. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know how it is for you as an entry-level developer. If you just started out in the field and you're trying to navigate the job market, but you're not having success because AI either took that role from you or you just don't have the skills. If you want me to help you with mentorship or just how to go about building a project and you want me to review your code and you want to ask me all these different questions around coding in particular, or just experience as a developer with my 12 years of experience, let me know. All right, we'll talk soon.